Welcome to the Tattooed Truth Podcast with Anna Love, a space for embodied conversations for soul-led rebels. I'm your host, Anna Love, intuitive empowerment coach, subconscious healing guide, and no stranger to burning it all down to rise in truth. Here we dive deep into identity, healing, personal power, and what it really takes to lead a soul-aligned life. You'll hear unfiltered insights, real stories, and live coaching sessions with bold callers ready to break free and embody their next level. This is your invitation to reclaim your voice, rewire your patterns, and rise fully expressed. Let's get into it. The things that no one tells you in your 20s. So let's dive in. If I could go back to talk to my younger self, specifically the girl in her 20s, here is what I would tell her. These are some gems that I've learned over the last, let's say, 30 years. Okay. So I wouldn't tell her to try harder. I would tell her to trust herself. And this is something that I know specifically that the version of me in my 20s, I was so conflicted with my inner guidance. And I would tell myself to shut up all the time. I dim my own light. I tell myself that my inner knowing wasn't real, that it wasn't true, that it wasn't there. And of course it's there, like it was always there because I could feel it in my chest. And when I needed to make decisions about things, my guidance was there the whole time. And it felt like the answers were provided to me. And then I was looking on the outside of me, asking everyone else what I should do, including those who were using me, who were abusing me, who were basically taking me for whatever I would give them so that they could benefit. The very, very first thing that I would tell the younger version of myself, if I could go back there now and whisper in her ear or just like take her and have like a one-to-one conversation with her, is to say, look, follow that intuition. Okay. Follow that lead. It's there for a reason. It was given to you as a resource to guide you. It's your inner compass. It's your inner knowing. It's where you come back to feel grounded, to feel worthy, right? To feel accepted. It's all of it inside of you right now. That is the number one thing I would tell her, because it's not about trying. And here's where the conflict is. The school system teaches you, and society at large teaches you, to work harder, to try more. When you try more, when you work harder, then you'll be able to produce more. You'll be able to get there. And that's the absolute worst thing to tell someone. That's actually bullshit. I call bullshit. And I have all this experience now, right? I'm 51 years old. I can tell a bullshit statement when it's true. Something that I didn't trust myself back then, even though my intuition did trust herself and the knowledge was coming from my intuition. The other thing I tell her, if I could go back in the past and talk to her and straighten her out, is that boundaries is a real thing. You need to be able to understand what a boundary is and how to set a boundary and how to keep a boundary, right? So a boundary is not a request. It's the opposite of a request. And you need to get real clear in at what point, when you have said something to someone like, here's what I stand for, here's what will not be happening, or I will not tolerate, right? That's different than a request. Here's something that I will not be tolerating. And when that person or people go past that limit that you've just set, then your boundary has been crossed. Okay. So again, not to get a boundary confused with a request. A request is, oh, please don't do that anymore. A boundary is, I will not tolerate this anymore. And here's what will happen if you do this. Here's the consequence. And then being very clear with yourself on what it feels like when that person goes beyond your limit, okay, goes beyond your threshold of this being okay and this being the place of tolerance, and then this being a clear line in the sand where I said, don't fucking do it, and you just did it. and what's going to happen. And you must, this is what I would tell her, you must walk away when that person crosses that boundary. There has to be a consequence, because without consequence, there's no respect. And I didn't have a lot of respect back then. I didn't have a lot of self-respect because I didn't have this boundary understanding. And yeah, it became almost a lifelong problem. Okay. So learning what a boundary is, and then actually there's a two-part to this. When you state your boundary, not making it mean anything other than this is real for me, this is true for me, and not like assigning a guilty meaning around it. Like, I know that growing up, and maybe this is true for you too, the reason why I got myself in, the reason why I was living in a place where I didn't know what a boundary was, is because that's what was modeled out there. That's what was going on inside my family dynamics. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm not excusing myself. I'm saying that when I tried, right? I hate the word try. When I attempted to, because try just means failure, which is what I was doing. When I would set a boundary, which wasn't a real boundary because it never had a consequence and it was barely more than a request, and it didn't get met, I would also feel bad. I would feel bad for sticking up for myself. I would feel bad for asking for things. Have you ever watched somebody or done this yourself where you're like, hey, can I ask a quick question? Can my question be quick? Is it okay if no, take the floor. I have a question. Here's my question. It doesn't have to be quick. Who said you can't take up space, right? Who said you can't set a boundary? Oh, because it's going to hurt somebody else? Yeah, well, that's not your business how they respond to the boundary that you're setting. A boundary is so that you feel safe, so that you've got your own back. Okay. And there's no place for guilt. Guilt is a man-made emotion that's not even a real thing unless you make it a real thing. So if you're in relationships with people who try to make you feel guilty for stating your terms or speaking your truth, then bye-bye to those people. And that's also a boundary. That's also a consequence. So another thing that I want to teach my 20-year-old self is that inner child, the inner child is real. And there was no way, shape, or form I even knew what an inner child was back then. They were just like, flare-ups that was happening, triggers that were going on in my life constantly inside my dating career, my dating experience, my 8-year saga with this one person from the time I was 16 to 24. And had I known at the time that my inner child was the one that was really inside that relationship, my younger me was dating this older person. Well, I say older person, he was like a year older than me, but my point is, I was 16 to 24, but the person who was showing up inside the relationship wasn't 16 to 24. She was my younger self who was still so far away from integrating, dealing with the traumas that had happened to her. When I was 16 years old, I was still a freaking baby. Okay. I was still dealing with things that were going on in my home that were absolutely abusive. And it was having me show up inside this relationship. And it may look like I was 16 or 17 or 18 or 19 or 20, going all the way up to 24, but I wasn't. I was still 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I was young and I was impressionable and I was still living in a trauma state. I was living in a fucking PTSD state, having this adult relationship, but living, in this place. So something that could have been useful for me to know in my 20s is that the younger child, the inner child, was running the show. And I needed to go see someone. I needed to talk this out. I needed to talk about what was really going on and what I was feeling on a daily basis. So these are the things that are super important. If I could go back in the past, but I can't. And so what do I do now? I speak out about it. And the people that need to hear me will hear me, whether they're in their 20s, whether they're in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and beyond. And I'm happy to say that I've had clients from as early as, maybe 19 and all the way up to 72 and anywhere in between. So I feel like I am helping people with my experience and, that's all I can do. And I've got 3 young girls at home in their teens, and all I can do is teach them and train them and talk to them and just drop little truth bombs like this. But let me know. Come find me on Instagram, Heal with Anna Love. Let me know what you're thinking about this. If you have any comments about this, that's the best way to find me. Just DM me. And yeah, I'll talk to you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Tattooed Truth Podcast. If this episode lit something up in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, leave a review, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a truth bomb. If you're craving deeper support, guided healing, or a space to reclaim your voice and power, check the show notes for ways to work with me. Remember, your truth is not too loud, too bold, or too much. It's exactly what this world needs. Keep showing up, stay wild, stay true. I'll see you next time.